Hey guys, and welcome back to the Renaissance Room podcast. And something that I just want to shed a light on really quick while we're here today is the cost of motherhood and what that looks like for Black women, Black maternal health care, right? Black maternal health in general, and how Black women bear a very different burden when it comes to motherhood, right? So it's really unfortunate because Black women are women, and very seldom are we treated as such. Very seldom are we given the opportunity to be women, right? And there's no, very seldom is there any, compassion for our womanhood, right? We typically have to fight for our womanhood because we are regulated to being the aggressor. And so I'm sitting here and I'm just thinking about how the realism, right? The realism of Black motherhood, and how for so many Black women, oftentimes you have no choice but to partner with someone who's a little less favorable. Now, hear me out. And this is what I love about podcasting. I want to make myself so clear, but I also want to make this very simple because, again, this is also a conversation for women who this was their lot, right? This is not something that's for every single woman. And what I mean by that is that during your childbearing years, right, you reach a point in your life where you're older, you're ready to have a child. There are not many suitable partners, right? And the men that would be suitable are not actually looking to partner for a long term, right? And so you typically have to take a bargain, right? This is why these conversations about provision and money and things like that, they come up because it's a reality for the vast majority of us, right? Men who have resources typically move those resources outside of our communities. They typically share those resources with other races of women, or they just simply hoard the resources to themselves, right? It's an ego problem. It's a really big psychological thing that is, very rarely examined, right, within the Black male. And if it is examined, it's not anything that is taken a look at to where Black men are then willing to make changes or have a discussion about it, because typically men who possess this mentality, though they are the majority, they're not willing to listen anyway, right? They're not looking to be reformed and to be radicalized and revolutionized and enlightened, rather, through education. So it's pointless to even bring it up. But Black women have to make a very hard choice. The vast majority of Black women, when it comes to mating, and I don't mean to reference who I'm getting ready to reference to ruffle any feathers or to say this person was right, or that's not my stance, right? When we take a step back from the emotionalism and the emotionally charged messages that were aggressive and offensive and very rude, what I'm really hearing, right, and the underlying tone of the content creator, the rise and fall of Kevin Samuels, right? What he was saying was that Black men are poor, and your options for mating, right, and actually being able to experience the biological desire, right, to have a child, it's a very vulnerable decision, right? And a lot of times you are going to be mating with someone who you really shouldn't be mating with, right? And it's really unfortunate that we never acknowledge the disparities and just how so many Black men are uneducated, right? We don't like to talk about it. I don't know why. I don't know why we think that it's just enough to just be like, hey, we'll just toss it under the rug. But there are so many Black men who despise education, right? And I understand that education is very linear by definition, right? It's through institutionalized learning. We know that there's a lot of faults within our educational system. There's a lot of discriminatory practice within our educational system. But by large, it's incredibly alarming. And most of our men are uneducated. And so I'm counting on to kind of share this space with Black women because I understand, right? Not all the times is it a blatant choice to choose to partner with someone like this. But when you start talking about that maternal desire, right? And let's just be comparative, because for other races of women, right? First of all, no other race has endured slavery, period, right? Not at the hands of Black people, not at the hands of American society and the ways in which we endured slavery and even still continuously, right? The reform of slavery, right? Nobody else has endured that. So let's just leave it there. But other women, typically, if you are someone who, hey, you're a woman, you're maternal, you're like, hey, I want a partner, I'm ready to have a baby, I've got X, Y, and Z in a row. Typically, that's not something that you struggle with, right? You're able to go out and actually meet a guy, be a little bit, intentional there, and have a decent partner. But for many Black women, it is not the case because the disparities of suitable partners for Black women is just not there. And I know we don't like to have these conversations because it's like an old narrative and it sounds negative and it's very cynical, but it's very real. It is very real. For Black males, family is not a priority, right? It is about radical individualization. It's about radical individualism, right? It's about, acquiring the resources that you didn't acquire in your childhood. And it's about being validated through materialism, right? The values are that. So it's always interesting to have these conversations to kind of shine a light on this. But I don't think we realize the grief in that. Like, I don't think anybody could really understand the magnitude of that. And so when Black women do decide to partner, since the beginning of time, Black relationships have never had that conventionalism, right? There's never been traditionalism in that sense, not by large, right? Just because of all of the economic disparities, but also American exclusionary practices against Black people. So even with home ownership, right? Like, there's just a lot of things there that have never really given us the opportunity to have that type of relational dynamic. Although it has existed, there has been families where the wives, have stayed at home and so forth. But more commonly, not so much, not so much. And so, yeah, I don't think anybody understands that grief. And so because you already don't fit into the traditionalism, you're Black, you already don't fit into European standards. Now you're carrying this weight of just being someone who's trying to take care of your kids. And now you're dealing with all this slander, right? I talk about this all the time, but white women who are single mothers or divorcees, these women are seen as empowered, right? These women are radical. They're feminist. They are able to garner a sense of community, a sense of camaraderie. They can get brand deals, right? Modern day. But for Black women, there's continual and perpetual shame. And just imagine carrying that burden, that umbrella under you while you're just trying to take care of your child, right? While you being a mother, being maternal, being like every other woman who has this desire to parent is having to forego so much. It's incredibly challenging, and there's no covering, there's no protection, there's no one coming to your defense, right? And so it's very saddening. And so when I hear women and young women say today, I'm not having kids, I don't blame them. I really don't. I think for Black women, it's just incredibly difficult. I really do. And I'm not saying that in the sense of like, whatever, but I'm saying that in the sense of just acknowledging the realities of Black life and acknowledging the hardship that is Black motherhood and Black maternal health care and just Black womanhood, right? Black womanness, right? It's an incredibly difficult plight. And when you're partnered with people who should protect you and should have those type of instinctual desires to protect and to provide for you, and they don't, that just makes it even more not worth the while, right? For so many Black women, it's like, hey, why put myself through this, right? It's a sad thing that young men can be over a certain age, fully capable of understanding and have no desire or realization of the magnitude of implications that come with bringing a child into this world, right? The sacrifices, all those things. That's a really big ask for a person who can't be honest or can't be, someone who essentially can't be suitable, right? To go out and to provide or to do whatever, right? I don't want to make it all about provision because you can have an amazing partner who's supportive, who's loving, and you guys can have your own dynamic, which is very realistic, right? But I'm talking about the vast majority of us. The vast majority of us, we don't get those partners. And so it's really unfortunate. And it makes you think, because, you look at women and you're like, oh, well, how did both of you guys become baby mamas to this person? And it's all of those things, right? The emotionalism of I don't want to say a lack of social evolution, but a lack of mating, And so the alternative is for Black women to forego motherhood, right? To forego the maternal instinctive desires, right? It's not an option for a lot of Black women. And I understand why. And even the Black women who do decide to partner later in life, who, unfortunately haven't made it, whose mother haven't made it into fame or wealth, right, by marrying someone. I'm referencing like Lori Harvey or, whatever. A Black woman who hasn't been given certain economic advantages and privileges and opportunities. Yeah, if you don't have that mobility, that's your reality, right? And that is incredibly difficult to be in that place where you should be able to go out and find a decent partner to partner with and to have a child and to start a family if that's what you desire. It shouldn't be this scarce thing that is actually withheld from you, right? And I don't think that, on average, I don't think that that's every woman's experience. And so it's very deep and it's very saddening. It really is, honestly. And I don't think that it's really given much acknowledgement, right? Because most people don't care, right? Black women are baby mamas, that the stigmas and the stereotypes that center around our personhood, right? That center around just who we are, right? It shields people from having any empathy from us, right? Just as a person, but also as a woman. And so people don't really they don't really have the grace and compassion for you. Whereas white women are victims, right? White women are seen as this poor little mother. She's a single mother. She's a superwoman. She's, what I mean? Whereas Black women, a lot of times it's seen as, that twice as hard concept, right? Like, well, you should have did X, Y, and Z. You should have, what I mean? And so it's just always unfortunate how our experiences are always so isolating, despite the women's movement, despite social integration, despite white women with the whole Harris thing and like it's always that for a lot of Black women. Our experiences are so isolating for Black people, even in general, right? Experiences, again, so isolating when the truth is that this is something that occurs within a lot of communities. However, sometimes it does just occurs in our community a lot more often, and that's by design. But it still happens in other communities. And instead of there being some type of like grace and compassion and understanding, there's not, right? And it hurts the most when it's from the men who can turn around and even in their own lives, if they're being honest, they can acknowledge the ways in which they have perpetuated and inflicted harm on women, right? By using psychological abuse and using emotional abuse and, really playing into a woman's maternal desires or playing into a woman's emotional desires for companionship, right? So that's the thing about being a Black woman. It's like you're constantly in this loop, right? I love the way she explains this. This is her Josie. She references the book Sister Citizen, but she talks about how Black women are born into a crooked room. And it's true. To be a Black woman is to constantly be contorting yourself to fit into this crooked room, right? This room that is already crooked, but you're given all of these different standards and procedures and dilemmas and, dynamic, like everything you have to go through to fit into this crooked room, which will never essentially accept you because it's crooked. You know what I mean? It was made that way. It was already crooked before you walked into it. You know what I mean? And I hope that I pretty much got that understanding, but yeah. Yeah. And so it's something else. It's something else, but just wanted to come on today and just kind of acknowledge that for the mothers out there, because I just think it's, we're no different. You know what I mean? We're no different. We're not, we're no different. We're no different, and it's a sad thing because in the eyes of everybody else, we are different and we are deserving of less. And it's incredibly saddening. So I just wanted to come on and acknowledge that. Hope you guys have a great day. Peace.